Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back. So we are back again with the Boss wireless system. This is going to be my long-term use review. Now, I got these September of 2018. It is now November 2019. So just a little over a year after initially buying these things. Okay, so what have we found out about these? Well, my initial video when I first tried these out, I guess I didn't let them charge long enough, so range was reduced. However, they do go a lot more than 50 feet when they're fully charged, okay? I've been using these things steadily in church. Every Wednesday we have a practice for our Sunday service, and then of course we have Sunday practice before service, and our time of worship during service. So I use them then. I also use them almost all the time at home. It's very rare that I don't actually use these at home on a daily basis as well. So any videos I've put up even in the last year that have music in them where I'm using wireless, they're in use. Okay. Now, I have a lot of Wi-Fi or wireless actually equipment in the house. Our internet router is not what you would be considered to be a Wi-Fi that you'd be normally used to. It uses cellular data, although its hub has Wi-Fi access for our computers. So we do have Wi-Fi frequencies in use. These have had no interference one side or the other. Okay. I also have headset, of course. This one that I'm using right now is my Fifine set. It's UHF. My new Sennheiser set, which is my pro level set, also UHF band. So UHF equipment cannot interfere with these units, or vice versa. Okay. Now there is 2.4 gigahertz equipment out there that these can cause interference with, but likely not the other way around, okay? But it is possible. So that's something that you find out with every manufacturer who does wireless equipment of any kind, is if you have collisions, sort them out. Now, if you want to look at the alleged pro-level wireless systems where you're still jammed in with a cable somewhere and a body pack, those systems have different channels they can change to manually with a switch. Some of them can auto hop if you get into the really super high-end stuff. These auto hop, and there's 14 channels in which they auto hop around. So when you go to use these things, every single time you must bind them, which means the same way you charge them, you put them together, and you just plug your USB cable into the receiver portion, and it'll charge both units at once. Or you can choose to charge them independently and not have them plugged together. It's kind of your choice. But before every single use, you have to plug them together, and you'll see the lights flashing. Now, when they stop, that's when the units are bound. They found frequencies that are clean that they can use. So then you just unplug and simply one end to your guitar, one end into whatever you plug it into, an amplifier, your pedal board, etc. Okay? Or direct into a mixing board or via a DI box. Now at church, I use a DI box on stage, and then it goes to the mixing board. So the units are also very close to me on stage at the church, but I've also used these in outdoor events as well. We had, they call it the Maple Syrup Fest. And in that, our church group, we were playing at that. And so there was me and our worship leader. We both had the exact same set, okay? And so we all hook up, and there is boatloads of Wi-Fi equipment going everywhere in that area. Cell phone people are going nuts, and hotspotting's going on, and people are surfing the net in town. So there's a lot of close-by Wi-Fi equipment. Even to our church, there's a lot of close Wi-Fi equipment. And we have not had any issues with these except for once we had a collision in church. And it turned out it was because me and the worship leader were trying to bind our units at the exact same time, in which case
one of us ended up playing through the other. And it's kind of like, this is not working right. So you get a light that's farting on you, and it's like, "Nyeh, nyeh, nyeh, nyeh." You know, and like the other guy's going over top of your monitor. How's this happening? This shouldn't happen. So one of us just has to rebind. And so ever since then, what we've done is I generally bind my units first because I'm always there before he is. And usually anyway. So I'll bind my unit first. He'll bind his when he's ready to hook in. Ever since then, we've had absolutely zero issues. Now, if you are getting collision issues, it could be something in your area, which is quite probable, okay? Could be you're not following the bind every time procedure as well, okay? Every time you use these, you have to bind them. So if you go and you unplug, as soon as you unplug, you've broken that connection. Now you've left one of these in the open air, right? So you have to, then again, rebind, search out a new frequency, and unplug and plug in, and away you go. Now, that does seem like a bit of a hassle. I agree. However, this is true wireless. Okay? Now, true wireless means no body packs, means no replacing batteries. But even if you do have a battery unit that is like this, that would still be true wireless. Just means you got to replace your batteries. These are built in, okay? But there's no body pack involved. There's no wire coming from a body pack to your guitar. Now, professional line systems like your Shures and the alleged pro stuff being Line 6, which I'm not a Line 6 fan. I'm sorry. I have reasons for it. But even in the higher end stuff, okay? Sennheiser, I believe, does a guitar one as well, and so do many other companies. There are all kinds of what's considered to be professional level stuff, and I guess they consider pro level being there's a body pack in use and a little cable. Well, no, that's not necessarily true. There are units in the alleged pro area that have more channel access than 14. However, you don't have to push any buttons on these, which is nice. Okay, they just auto-search the frequencies up to 14 units that you can have. You will never see a band with 14 people all running wireless all at the same time. It just doesn't happen. You can only actually have so many guitars and so many of every other instrument that's, you know, string-based that's going to be plugged in using these, okay? That's just the way it goes. Anyways, so when I talk about button systems, and, you know, you have the Joyo systems. Okay, now this one's slightly modified because I had a charging issue, but so I modded it. But these have what's called an frequency interference system. Okay, now you can bind up to 4 of these together. And if you get collisions, which we've had that, you got to sort it out. You got to hit the button, let it do its thing, hit the button again, let's do it until your collision is gone with the other guy using a Joyo unit. Now, Joyo units with Boss together at the same time have had no problems. Same as Boss with X5. If X5's had a problem, it's because X5 needed to be changed to another channel. Now, I had X5 units. They finally completely died on me, all my units. And I'm not spending the money to replace batteries. They've served me well. They've more than paid for themselves, so I really didn't care. And when I went to go get another wireless system anyways, I still had the X5s. They were still running at the time, but I wanted to go higher end, okay? Much higher end. And I like the idea of no buttons, no limits to 4, okay? This limits me to 14, which is a lot better than being limited to 4. Okay, now, I'm not saying anything bad about X5. They are great units, okay? But if you are the type of musician that is into a more professional level, or you require more higher-end level gear, then you go with these, okay? Now, there are professionals using X5, and that's great. They do work in a professional setting. Okay, and they work really well. Now, the only thing is you have to manually change channels with them, okay, which I find can be a bit of a pain, especially when you're involved with other guys that have X5 units or another unit that's colliding with your X5. Now you got to change your channels, right, because this is just anti-interference. This isn't actually changing channels. It does its own thing. I don't know how, but it's
not what you think. It's kind of a different system. But anyways, so the X5s are still great units. I still would recommend them for people who don't have the extra dollars to go Boss, or they don't want to go Boss, or there's a reason why you don't want to go Boss. One of the things that can turn you off from the Boss systems is when it comes to Stratocaster guitars, because when you plug in this transmitter, though it's actually fairly small, it tends to be an interference problem with your whammy bar, where the X5s don't interfere. They lay down nice and flat, so you have full rotation of that whammy bar, and you're okay, and not a big deal. Whereas this, you got to first make sure your whammy bar is sitting in front of the unit, and then plug them in, and then your whammy bar can rest up against this unit. So, which, that's one thing I don't like about these. Okay, so Boss does need to make a little bit smaller unit. Okay, otherwise, fine. Now, I do have a video up on my channel telling you guys about some problems that I had run into with some Les Pauls and a few other guitars, because the power on system on this is just this little piton button, okay? And so it's a certain amount of pressure to put that in there. So Boss actually should lighten the spring load a little bit, and that would actually probably make things a lot better. But the problem is this button has only so much distance it can cover. And if your nut is too sunken into the threads too far, these are not going to work very well. Okay, so you need to add an extra nut to make it flush with your input jack or output jack of your guitar, or beef it up with some washers using the original nut and get it as flush as you can so that this button can make contact. Okay. So, should Boss actually get rid of this little button and go to maybe a on and off slider switch? Might be a good idea. I wouldn't suggest that Boss goes with like a push button system like this, because these actually will wear out faster than a slider switch will. But you would have to use a really high quality slider switch. But that means some R&D, some reconfiguration of the guts inside, which they could probably do. So even if they did go to a push button on and off system, it probably wouldn't be that bad of a thing. But getting rid of this might be the trick to solve a lot of problems for people having to, you know, get extra washers for their output jacks on their guitars. You know, I've even ran into it on an amp where the nut was too far sunken down and the receiver didn't want to quite connect right. So that's not a big thing to fix that. Just get another nut and thread her on, and away you go, you know. So there are a couple of shortcomings that are minor to get around, but overall, the shortcomings make it worthwhile. These units have served me flawlessly. The runtime, which is another reason why I didn't go out and get another set of X5s, was the runtime on this is double what the X5s are. So I get double the runtime over the X5s. Same recharge time, okay, about 2 hours from when they're pretty well dead. Now, before we go, I want to make a recommendation for everybody using any kind of rechargeable system like these, or could even be these. Run them down till they die every couple of months, okay? Even a lithium-ion or lithium polymer LiPo battery will gather memory over time. I had my little experience already with these, but I've also had experience in the past because I'm an RC guy, and I've had experience with memory clogging happening on LiPo batteries and lithium ions already. So what they tell us on the internet of the world is crap. They do actually gather a memory over time. They do. And I've also had this experience with customers for RC stuff in the past where I've been able to clear the memory out of the battery, and it's been perfectly fine afterwards, and he went from like 10 seconds of flight time back to 10 minutes. Okay? I mean, it's really something you should watch out for every once in a while. So don't discount the fact that the battery may be pooched. It might not be pooched. It might just be there's a memory clog. So to run these down dead, just plug them into a jack, each one, And when you see there's no more lights lit, they're done. They're dead. So then you just take them off, put them together, put the charge cable into the receiver, or if you got a double charger cable, one on each, leave them separate, away you go, and you'll be good for, another several months. It's just good maintenance, which is also going to give you that maximum runtime all the time, and it's going to give you a lot more life cycles out of these batteries before you actually have to change the batteries. And changing the batteries in these, I think Boss would probably prefer that they did it, but you can actually take these apart yourself, find the appropriate battery, and replace them yourself, I'm sure. Can't be that difficult. I've not had mine apart. I don't intend to, because I have these under extended warranties, so I don't have to ever worry about batteries ever. Which means I don't have to ever take these apart, which is great. It depends where you buy. I buy from Long McQuaid, so I get their performance warranty. So these things are covered for as long as I keep renewing that warranty every year. So I'll never have to worry about it. So if you are having interference issues, which I know one chap is, I've been talking to him on and off on the channel, I've given him some suggestions to follow. Because it could boil down to the fact that he does have a set that is defective, which can happen, okay? Because he's getting a lot of interference happening. So, but generally you shouldn't be getting interference, because they will search out a clean channel within your area that you're in, within X amount of distance, of course, and you should be just peachy cream fine, okay? The other thing that could be tricking you and thinking you have an interference could very well be these little buttons, okay? That could be that they're just not quite resting perfect the way they should on your guitar. Now, I'm going to show you, and then we're going to get out of here so you can get on with your fun for the day. So, I got this new Epiphone Special, and I've not tried them on here, but if you look, you can see that that nut is flush, okay? So I won't have any problems with this unit in here. It's going to be just fine. I'll be able to spin it and spin it and spin it, and the light won't even think about flickering, okay? So that's good. So that's what you want. Now, I haven't done anything with that nut, so it's been fine. Now, my Gibson, not only did I replace my input jack because it sucked, but I also beefed it up so that it's flush. All right? No hassles with it being flush. And we can just keep going here. So, I've also got my Epiphone Les Paul Custom. Now, you'll see there's a silver nut, and this is all gold from the factory. But if I undo this nut, it's going to leave a gap. Now, this gap may or may not work out. There's a couple threads showing. And if we spin it, we're okay. But I put the extra nut on there just as a safety because I wanted to ensure that there's no way that that thing could even vibrate on me and lose connection while playing. So I actually should get rid of this whole nut idea and throw a washer in there. It'd be much better. But we'll get to that. Now, my Stratocaster, this is where I was telling you about the problems with the Strat. Let's say your whammy bar sitting back here, plug it in, you got no access. Okay, so now you got to unplug it, plug it back in, and your whammy bar gets to slam against there. Okay, doesn't particularly turn my crank much, but if I want to use this wireless set, that's what I got to put up with. So the Joyo set is actually far worse because, I mean, it's a huge unit. You know, like that just not only looks ugly, it is ugly, right? So Boss went a lot smaller than Joyo, we'll give them credit, but they just need to go a little bit smaller with the transmitter part, and they'll have it licked. You know, even if they just change the shape so that the whammy bar could pass through, that would be awesome. So we'll see. Maybe they will do an update. Who knows? But I do enjoy the runtime out of the Boss units much more than any other unit I've owned or tested. I like the fact that they auto-hop frequencies. I don't have to worry about push buttons for power on and off or anti-interference button garbage. You know, I do like these little spring-loaded things to a certain point. They do work for the power buttons. But on the other side of the fence, you know, I've had a couple of guitars that I've had to actually beef up a little bit to get that main output jack nut flush enough to work with these. And I have had, like I said, one amp that had given me a problem once. So easy solution, but you shouldn't have to have that solution. So they either need a little bit longer button with a really soft spring, or they need to soften the spring period in some cases, either way, depending on how you want to look at it. But you may or may not have issues. Okay, that's the thing. There's no guarantee here. If you don't have any, great. As far as your collisions go, if you're having collisions, just try rebinding the units again. Maybe you somehow got onto a frequency or one popped up on you that it didn't see, you know, while it was searching. That can happen, I suppose. But do remember that these are now disconnected. They're just bound. I can plug these in. I'm good. As soon as I unplug them again, though, they unbind. Okay? And so I'd have to rebind them again to plug them back in again. And every time used, it's the way it goes. And that's fine. It doesn't bother me. It's something you just get used to, right, over time. But they're definitely well worth every penny that they charge for these things. They are awesome. The sound quality out of them is great, even through recording, etc. Like studio recording. You want to do studio quality recording. These things are great. They're like, I haven't picked up any noise from these whatsoever. You know, so that's been great. Anyways, overall, great units. Highly recommend them. There's a lot of places you can buy them. I live in Canada. I shop at Long McQuaid for like over 90% of my gear that I buy. It's like all from them. Very little stuff gets actually purchased outside of Long McQuaid. But it's because I love dealing with the company. Okay, they're great to me. They're great folks at our store. I've been into other Long McQuaid stores. They've been, you know, really good as well. So I've had no problems. My favorite store just happens to be 20 minutes up the road, so that's where I deal, you know. Unless I happen to be out of town, then I'll go to the nearest Long McQuaid that's in whatever area I'm visiting. If I find something I want to buy, hey, cool, you know. Anyhow, so thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the update video on this set. Do give them a serious look if you haven't. But after a full year of using this in many different situations, and I've used them outdoors in the cold, okay, that Maple Syrup Fest it wasn't freezing cold, but it was pretty chilly out, and they still worked really good for our entire time doing that set. So that was a good couple of hours, so that was all right. No problems, you know, no problems at all. So yes, I would definitely recommend them, whether you're, you know, beginner, pro, whatever. Intermediate level, you know, kind of guy, you're gigging wherever, they're great, you know, and the more wireless you can go, I think the better for a lot of things nowadays. So if you're a busker, you know, you got a battery powered amplifier, you know, got this. My 5-fine unit that I'm using for my headset is battery for the transmitter and for the receiver, so you can be 100% wireless, and this unit only costs $50, and the sound quality out of it is actually quite good, and I've used it for a lot of vocal recordings, and it actually works just as well as my Sennheiser. The difference is this thing eats batteries like crazy on the receiver side. So it's kind of like, I needed a solution. So I have the Sennheiser, which I actually bring my Sennheiser to church all the time. So it's back and forth between the church and the house in the studio here. So, you know, and if we go and we do something like outdoor event or whatever, I bring, you know, my Sennheiser. I'll bring this as an emergency backup only, you know, type of thing. So anyways, there you go. Thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one. Ciao.